Also dismissing the South African case out of hand is the British Foreign Secretary, David Cameron. He called the accusations of genocide, quote, nonsense.
Even if you take a different view to my view, to look at Israel, a democracy, a country with the rule of law, a country with armed forces that are committed to obeying the rule of law, to say that they have, that country, that leadership, that armed forces, that they have the intent to commit genocide, I think that is nonsense. I think that's wrong.
Let's cross live now to activist and political scientist Shipululo Amupanda in Namibia. Job, it's good to have you join me right now. Now, considering the colonial history of the UK, Germany and other European nations in Africa, how do you perceive the criticism of South Africa's approach to international law and justice?
Thank you very much, and greetings to you, Mike, and your listeners on RT. You know that the line of, we used to watch and follow RT very well. Now we only do that on social media. They have found a way to block RT here, but I'm very happy that you are making efforts to also get the voices of people in Africa. Now, back to your specific question. In Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, in countries that have a history with colonialism, there's a term that we call imperialism. Yeah, of course, we do accept that the term has universal application, but as far as Southern Africa and the former colonies of these countries are concerned, because you know we were colonized, Southern Africa was colonized by the British, the Portuguese, and the Germans. So we have a deeper appreciation and understanding of what imperialism does. Imperialism does not only occupy your sovereign space, but imperialism also seeks to dominate. And it seeks to dominate in all manifestation. They don't see you at all. They don't see that you exist as a human being. So what imperialism has done with its twin aspect of racism is to dehumanize the Africans. So when South Africa stands up to raise the argument that the South Africans are raising, and it is not necessarily that the British and the German are answering, looking at the merits of the case. They are answering, saying these are black people. What is wrong with them? What do they know? So what is in the tone, even in terms for a foreign secretary to refer to another state, for David Cameron, who has been a prime minister of a country, to use those words to say it's absolute nonsense. It is not only, if it was France, he would obviously not use the same word. If it was another imperialist country that is taking up. I mean, what did South Africa do wrong? Absolutely nothing. The Genocide Convention and those instruments of international laws have been probably even introduced by those imperialist countries. South Africa is simply just saying, we are all signatories to this convention. We all accept that the International Court of Justice is there to solve problems. Yeah, it's one of the constructive ways of conflict resolution in the international arena. But the attitude that the imperialist forces, the dehumanization of the Africans in general and the black people in particular, demonstrates the responses that we have seen over the years. I mean, the Africans suffered more than 500 years of colonialism. It keeps changing. Nkrumah, after independence, called this neo-colonialism. So in other words, colonialism has ended, but it continues even after independence. It continues in the practice of international law. It continues in diplomacy. It continues in different ways of how they relate. So we are obviously, as Africans, not surprised that such is a particular attitude. You say international law must take precedence, okay? So if international law must take precedence, what did South Africa do? South Africa went to the International Court of Justice. Israel also get an opportunity to argue. We are not waiting for opinions of the Germans or the opinions of the British. The South Africans and the Africans are waiting for the courts to pronounce themselves. They made to us, we were very proud for those brilliant arguments that have been made there. Yeah, and you could see Israel's response to those cases. They are saying, yeah, there's attack, there's loss of life, but it's not necessarily genocide. Of course, what do you expect the Germans to respond? Yeah, the Germans, when the president of our country speaks, say that they have not atoned, we struggled with the Germans to acknowledge and accept that the first genocide of the 20th century took place in Namibia, then German Southwest Africa. So they've been playing with words, saying, yeah, in modern terms, what has happened between 1904 to 1908 can be regarded as genocide. Yeah, so it's a serious question. But for us, as activists in Namibia, what we are very happy about is that our government has been selling out. They were having big underground discussion with the Germans. So it caught them by surprise that Germans would seek to take practical action. In fact, we are also saying if Germany is intervening into those proceedings on the side of Israel, we should equally intervene as Namibia. Because that is the general attitude of imperialists. Imperialists don't only occupy and extract your resources and colonize you. The imperialists don't see you. They don't see your humanities. They dismember you from the human family. So anything else that you say and do attract that type of responses.
All right. Now, before I let you go, Job, you talked about neocolonialism and imperialism and all of that. Now, when it comes to this perspective, a lot of sub-Saharan African countries share this experience. How do you think they should stand with each other in taking advantage of an international instrument to which they are all signatories to?
Well, I think for Southern Africa, the International Court of Justice is not the first. South Africa's case is not the first experience for us. You remember in the 1960s, we had gone to the International Court of Justice. First, we had gone there, and then again, those imperialists, Germany and others, and the British. What our case was that during those times that the occupation of Namibia, our country, my country, the occupation of Namibia by apartheid South Africa, which was the apartheid regime, as we know, it was an instrument of imperialism. We know, for example, that apartheid South Africa was supported by Israel. Apartheid South Africa was supported by the British, Margaret Thatcher and others. You remember that Thatcher and them were calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Until even after independence, when Nelson Mandela has been praised internationally, he was still regarded as a terrorist. The US probably just removed Mandela from that list of him being called a terrorist in the 2000s, you know, even after he left office while claiming that he's of his greatest contributor. So we do have that experience with that instrument. But we do recognize that what is basically happening is that it's at the height of the shifting global power relations. They now know that the Africans and Southern Africa in particular is shifting towards the east. Of course, the Russians have always been our friends. The Chinese have always been our friends. The Cubans have always been our friends. And leftist countries that supported our struggles have always been our friends. But of course, at independence, we saw a lot of stooges that were aligning with the West. And I was watching TV the other day. One of those guys in Britain actually said they can see that South Africa and other countries are aligning with Iran. We are not aligning with those countries. Those countries have always been our friends. Our founding president, for instance, speaks about the one of the first weapons, the people who were prepared to give us weapons to fight our struggles. We're not imperialist countries. So we do have the experience. For example, the ICJ in 1960s, in the 1967, I think, or between 1965 and 1967, declared that the occupation of Namibia by South Africa is illegal. And it gave us an impetus of us fighting for that struggle. And
right.
what is actually interesting is those words that are used, for example, by the Prime Minister of Israel, who was saying No one can stop them in continuing with the bombardment of women and children in
All right,
Gaza.
Job.
Not the hate.
All right, Job, I'm afraid we have to leave it here now. I really thank you for your insight and taking us back memory lane on some of these issues. We'll certainly look forward to more time to discuss these issues. Job Amupanda, activist and political scientist, joining us from Namibia. Thank you.